So, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while now, you know that there's an art series that I'm working on, which is all about the 12 Zodiac signs, and we've been through all 12 of the dark shadow aspects of the signs, and we're about halfway through the light aspects. Sorry about the knocking, by the way, the neighbors. A couple of months ago, we finished the light Libra piece, and so today I want to work on the next sequential piece, which is Scorpio. However, with this series specifically, I actually put in a fair bit of research before actually getting to painting the piece. There's a lot of background story, lore and concepting and sketching that goes on in my process. And so today I thought I would share that bit of the art process with you. I know a lot of you guys want to be concept artists, and while I don't consider myself a concept artist per se, I'm more of an illustrator really. I figured that it might actually help you guys to see all of the pre-planning and the thought process that goes on with every single painting before it actually gets put onto canvas. This is a little different to my usual tutorials, but yeah, if you enjoyed this video and learned something today, make sure to like and subscribe. But yeah, let's now go behind the scenes. Okay, so for those of you who don't know or don't remember, I've been working on an illustration series about the 12 signs of the Zodiac, and while it initially only started as depictions of the dark aspects of each sign, I eventually expanded it to also doing the light aspects as a follow-up series, and we are now on sign number 8 of the light aspect series, which is Scorpio. I always like to start with a solid idea of who my character is, because the illustration process is not just visual for me, it is about telling stories, as I'm sure it is for you guys as well. And with this series in particular, I wanted to dive really deep into the lore of each sign in order to tell the story in each painting. So I started by making notes. I usually do this with pen on paper in my sketchbook, but I thought I'd put it all on OneNote for you guys today. I think better when I physically write by hand as opposed to typing, so this felt like the perfect app for it. First, I made note about all standard astro details about Scorpio, i.e. it is a fixed water sign, it is ruled by Pluto and Mars, and it is symbolized by a scorpion. I noted some lore about Orion, the proud hunter, and Scorpius, the giant scorpion sent by Gaia to kill Orion before he hunted every last animal on Earth. But most important of all, Scorpio energy is symbolic of death, darkness, mysticism, and the underworld, everything that lives in the shadows. I then went about creating a mood board right next to the notes. The initial plan was to involve a lot of dark feminine design in the piece, so I had a lot of dark feminine elements, but then I realized I'd already done a feminine character for the dark Scorpio piece, this one if you haven't seen it before, so I'd have to do a masculine character this time because that's what I've done all series. But regardless, this mood board gave me some very fun, very interesting ideas for where I wanted to take the piece. Now that we have an idea of the mood and story we want to relate through the painting, it is time to start making the ideas more concrete by considering elements of the composition. Now, although this is supposed to be part of the light aspect series, Scorpio still is a very dark sign in terms of it deals with all the things that happen in the dark. Death, manipulation, magic, sex, just sensuality in general. In many ways, it talks about the fundamentals of being human. So in terms of the composition, I definitely wanted symbols that depict the fundamentals of life on Earth. Again, at this stage, I was still working under the assumption of a feminine character. Scorpio to me is a very feminine sign, but a lot of the composition still stayed the same, minus the lingerie. I wanted to include things that describe the Earth, at least in my opinion, so a giant scary puppy has to be part of it. Since the lore said Mother Gaia or Mother Earth sent the giant scorpion into battle, of course the character has to bear a symbol of the Earth. I wanted some sensuality, and to me the most sensual, attractive color combination is black and red together. They make me think of leather and wine, and who doesn't love a leather and wine kind of night? I definitely wanted the character seated, since Scorpio is a fixed sign, and maybe they could sit in like an ocean of some sort. And then I thought of roses and how roses and thorns go together. Maybe we'll integrate that somewhere. I gathered some poses and references for both the character and the hellhound, but again, it was immediately after this that I decided I actually wanted a dark masculine character instead. So then I went about gathering some references for the perfect masculine energy I was looking for here. And of course we needed some photos of guys with dogs for composition and no other reason. And now we can start putting down some marks on canvas. Full disclosure, I usually do thumbnail trials in the sketchbook as well, but in the interest of this video, I thought we'd go all out and do some colorful thumbnails. I always work on an 8K canvas with A4 paper proportions. A quick tip is to first fill a layer with any flat color and then resize it smaller while holding the shift key to maintain the proportions. That way, when you like a thumbnail, you can just size it up again and it will fit your final canvas perfectly. I did 4 separate thumbnails here and used the small size to test a bunch of different concepts without spending ages on doing full-size trials. I kept the colors to a grayscale spectrum with accents of bright red, and I tried a variety of compositional elements. I knew I wanted the dog to be massive and for the character to interact with the dog in some way, nothing too aggressive, just a gentle interaction. For the first 2 thumbs, I had in mind the image of a scorpion's tail as a background silhouette with the character petting the dog in some way, but those didn't have enough death imagery for me, because that's like a huge part of that 8th house Scorpio energy. So for the 3rd thumb, I put in some snake and skull elements because they're both very important symbols of death. In Hindu mythology, the snake is associated with Lord Shiva, the destroyer, so that was definitely something I wanted in the mix. For the final thumbnail, I thought, hey, what if we make the hellhound the background and its glowing red eyes could cast a nice rim light? Now, here's the fun bit. Once we have the 4 thumbnails in place, it is time to mix and match. First off, my favorite background of them all was the 3rd one with the snake in the skull. However, with the hound, I really loved the dog in the 2nd one where he's seated and relaxed but alert. So I cut the dog out of the 2nd thumb and stuck it into the 3rd. I really liked the character pose in the final thumb, so that was the next thing to go in. I then resized the 3rd thumb to fit the canvas, and of course it fit perfectly because we constrained proportions. And finally, I had loved the turbulent looking water at the bottom of the first image, so I went ahead and painted that into the concept, as well as some waterfall looking shapes in the back. So this is a very rough idea of what our final composition is going to be like, and I really love it so far. Alrighty, time to start working on the sketch. I should say I'd spent about 4 hours of prep time before getting to this stage, but I truly believe that the more time you spend getting clarity for your piece, the quicker the rest of the process is going to be. Painting isn't just putting marks down on the canvas, a huge part of it is thinking. You'd be surprised at how much time and energy goes into choosing colors and lighting and such, especially if you haven't planned it out in advance. So I much prefer doing all of the thinking at the start of a piece when I have the most mental energy and inspiration, and leaving all the legwork for later when I don't have as much mental energy, but I can just zone out and paint. But anyway, I started by lowering the opacity of the thumbnail, making a new layer on top, and starting a rough sketch with my pencil brush. Of course, there's a ton of references that I'm looking at, but I keep them on a different screen so it doesn't clutter the monitor that I'm painting on. With the character's anatomy, I wanted something slim but fit, because Scorpio is a sign that is ready to sting at any time, but it's pretty low-key until then. With the scary dog, the big issue I had was that I was using references of actual Doberman dogs, but as a dog person, they all look super cute to me. So the big scary hellhound ended up just looking like a sweet, kind puppy. So then I had to grab references later to make him scary, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, I put down the snake throne thing, as well as the skull armrest and the troubled waters. Then it was time to lower the opacity and refine the sketch a little, which I did for each individual element. I'll put up the entire process on Patreon on Monday because I don't want to bore you guys with repetitive iterations of the same thing here if you don't want to see it. But coming back to the dog, I realized that I needed not realistic references, but more stylized versions of dogs that are made to look mean and scary. I'm not an animal artist, I mostly paint humans, so this was definitely a challenge. And so I had to grab pictures of art about Doberman dogs as opposed to pictures of actual Doberman dogs. And thinking back to shape language basics, we know that the most agile, dangerous shape of them all is the triangle. So I went about making as many of the shapes triangular as possible, and there he is. There is a mean hellhound. Now, I was going to leave it at this stage and dive into painting the piece next week, but you know what? I want to try doing an even cleaner third pass, this time using a textured ink brush. So I lowered the opacity one more time and went about tightening up that line work even more. And I am so glad I did this, because it was at this stage that I corrected several issues with the sketch. The right eye, for instance, was way too close to the nose, the Adam's apple was in the wrong place, the hand needed rearranging, the button and loop on his trousers were in the wrong places. There was a lot. Plus, I used even more fabric references as well as more score references, and then finally I ended up with a sketch that I truly, truly love. But what do you guys think? Next week we'll add some color to this piece, and I've actually got something really fun planned for the video, so I hope you'll stick around and see this painting through to the end with me. But if you've enjoyed this video and learned something today, please do take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps a lot. Are there any aspects of my concept process that you're going to implement? Are there any aspects of your concept process that I should implement? Let me know in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going down there. Come say hello on social media. I'm at Srish Creates everywhere, but there are links in the description below. And if you want to support my channel, I put up all of my art, every speed paint ever, all of my tutorials, as well as my brush pack up on Patreon, which I have linked up here right now. If you just want to grab the brush pack, I've linked my Gumroad shop up here now, and you can just grab that and we can be brush mates. But yeah, that's all I have to say today. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Check out this video down here for some more tutorial tip thingies on concepting a character from scratch, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!